The increase in education spending, and I'm just, getting ballpark, not exact dollars, but 2001 when I took office, I think our education budget was about 75 to 80 million. Right now it's 115 million. So it's a tremendous, it's about a 40% increase in education spending over a 10-year period. And of course, it's because of pressures put on us by No Child Left Behind, by the state, new mandates that they lay on us that we have to follow through on, so they can be very expensive. We went through a reevaluation in 2007. What we saw there was a significant shift in the burden of who pays away from commercial taxpayers, that's okay, to our residential taxpayers. So that means that the residents of the city are carrying about 75% of the taxes. In the past, it was more of like a 60-40 split. There's more of a burden on the individual homeowner, which feeds into the whole foreclosure issue that we're seeing. Just a couple other ideas. In order for us to gain, and David, you jump in here, in order for us to fund $4.2 million of new money to the Board of Ed, you would need in new construction, ballparking it, I'm going to say probably $300 million, $320 million.
Yeah.
In our best year in 05, we had $166 million worth of permits built, and that was during the height of the boom. It doesn't get any better than that. So you can't just say, well, there's a lot of construction, so obviously we can afford to fund the increase. Next year, we're programming, we're guessing, we're making a pretty educated guess that we'll see about $83 million of new permits in the city, which is half of what we had in 05. So you can really see where the economy has just slammed us in terms of rateable, what we call rateable properties that are eligible to pay taxes, that we can fund our intergovernmental responsibilities. Naturally, the state has not helped us at all, and we haven't had an increase in our ECS formula in probably 3 or 4 years. And it's even when they did increase it, it was significantly behind where it should have been to fund the commitment the state has to fund 50% of our education. Let me give you a figure. The city of Danbury gets about $23 million a year through the educational cost sharing formula. We have 80,000 residents. We are the 7th largest city. The 8th largest city in the state is New Britain. They get $77 million of ECS money. That's how screwed up and bizarre that formula is. But the reality is that not only did we not go up in ECS, they cut our priority school district grant by $250,000. So that's a tremendous hit to the school side, and that's a direct grant that goes to the Board of Ed. It doesn't come through the city and then we don't reprogram it. It goes directly to the Board of Ed. A couple other figures, 2005, we had $4.9 million worth of licenses and permits that were paid to the city of Danbury. Next year, we're programming $2.9 million. So we've seen a $2 million drop in license and permitting fees for the city. Interest income in 2005 was $1.3 million. Today, it's $270,000. We took $1 million hit in our interest income. All of these things impact the bottom line, and all of these things make it harder for our taxpayers to be able to stay in their homes. And when you look at the big picture, your responsibility as a city council and my responsibility as mayor is to try to keep people in their homes first. It's part of the hierarchy of needs to have shelter. And it's a real challenge for all of us. We made a major assumption in this budget as well, that the governor's budget would somehow make it through the process where they started. Just 2 days ago, they announced that they have an alternative budget. If the governor doesn't get a certain amount of concessions in the contracts, that they would look at municipal aid. And we may very well have to come back and cut not only the school budget, but come back and cut the city budget again, and look for significant, we're looking at significant layoffs on the city side. And as you know, on the city side of the budget, we have 46 positions that will remain vacant next year, 12 positions that we programmed to eliminate, and 36 positions that simply won't be there.
Thank you.
While they're in our TO or not funded. So all of these things are coming together, frankly, to provide a perfect storm, if you will. And we really feel fortunate that we can even recommend $1 million more spending in terms of our residents. To get another $1 million out of the mill rate, you'd have to raise the mill rate probably, yeah, about 12, it amounts to about $240 per household per year. Excuse me, not another $1 million. To get to 4.2, it amounts to be about 250, 200, we run the numbers, $260 additional taxes on the house per year, plus what your additional that we've already programmed. To get to another $1 million, it would be probably another, $100 or $120 per year, a little bit less than that. So depending on the size of the house and all the other variables. So it's a difficult time, and I just want to dispel a couple of things. One is that Sal, Ilio, David and I talk, I don't know, probably every day almost, at some point during the day. We really are trying to work everything we can. We know that there's some key priorities that are on the chopping block that we're concerned about. We like to help in any way that we could to help mitigate those particular programs. The Board of Ed is doing everything it can to try to minimize costs and reduce costs, and it's going to be a challenge in the next several years, not just this year, I guess. With that, I know I spoke a lot, and I don't know if David wants to.
Thank you so much.
I think we pretty much covered. I didn't hear if you talked about the tax appeals.
We actually, in the 07 grand list, here's what happens, right? We do the reassessment, the housing values collapse, commercial property drops. The people who own a ranch of $250,000, they may come in here and appeal, and maybe they'll get 10 grand or 20 grand knocked off their assessment, but they don't have the money to take the next step, which is to go to court. Only our corporations go to court. And so what happens is we've got dozens upon dozens of these appeals for how many?
We have about 95.
95 appeals of the largest taxpayers in the city of Danbury, right? They have the lawyers to be able to afford their appeal. And so what that means is we may say the property's worth 40 million. They say, no, it's worth 30 million. And they sue us. And we go to court and we go see the judge. And the conversation goes something like this. The judge calls us in the chambers. He goes, look, I don't want to have a trial. I've got a golf date. I'm busy. He says, how about city, 35 million and we're done. It always starts knocking off money from the assessment. It's never like, hey, the city's right, you guys got to pay up. We don't have that conversation. So we've done everything we can to mitigate that loss, but every time we bring, as you know, we've sat in those executive sessions, we bring an appeal to you, we're losing tax revenue. We've settled about 35 of those appeals. And that's why we have a negative grand list. We don't have any grand list growth. We have no extra growth that we can tax to be able to provide more money or put more money anywhere in our budget. And that's why things are so tight for the next couple of years.
Can you also maybe talk about all the things that the council has approved?
Oh, well,
Buildings and.
Sure, and I've said this before, and I think it's worthy to note that as I mentioned with the pension obligation that we're going to fully fund this year, because we're not the state, we don't ignore our pension obligations. We're not the federal government, we don't put money in the basement and then just hand it out. We actually meet our obligations. So for the paraprofessionals, that's over $1 million of money that we had to put in there that we've never had to put in there before. So there's an expense. We programmed renovation projects at Danbury High School this year, Alternative Center, King Street Intermediate and Primary, Park Avenue, Broadview, and a whole host of other schools that amount into the millions. The one boiler project that I'm going to ask you to approve on the 20th is $11.5 million for new boilers for Danbury High, Broadview, and King Street. And we got to do it. You got to keep the heat on. But that gnaws away and nibbles away at the bottom line of what we're trying to do here, as well as a host of other things that we do that are offline. I mean, it's silly stuff. Sal and I have been looking at the field at Danbury High, and we have to replace and the tennis courts. We have to replace the field at Danbury High School because when we built the field in '02, they said to us, "You're going to get about 8 years out of this," and we got 9 years out of it. And to replace that field, it's about $600K. That's $600,000. Now that comes out of capital, right? It's borrowed money. We still got to pay back the loan though, so that eats away at our debt service, and it eats away at having operational dollars to be able to put into other services. But if we don't do it, kids aren't going to be able to play football in the fall. I mean, you have to close the field. It's unsafe to play on. So these are the kinds of things that we do fund, and we do it because it's the right thing to do. But it's expensive, and it hurts in this economy, I guess.
Thank you. Mr. St. Hilaire, is there anything you would like to add?
You know, the Board of Ed and the city are constantly looking for ways to work together, to find the common areas, and, you know, whether it's in purchasing, IT, and finance. We do make purchases together in the fuel area, electricity area, in the gas area. There are plenty of common areas that we haven't even touched upon yet, and we've had several meetings to explore those areas. And we talk about it all the time. The budget kind of put those things on hold simply because both of our respective groups have been too busy to focus on putting our packages together. But quite frankly, we understand that you know, that we have to all work together to get through get through the year and to plan ahead. And we are really, we're not just looking at the current year or the next budget year. We're doing projects that will help reduce the operational expenses for years ahead. Whether that means looking into voice over IP or other projects.
Energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency projects, and that's why we kind of added in the windows after going through last year. We said, well, why do that and not do this? We backed off and said, let's throw in the windows as well.
And Madam Chairman, that program, the boiler replacement, would have really reaped some benefits and some savings if oil was still at about $2.50 a gallon. But now it's at $5 a gallon. Now it's just cost avoidance for the board. I mean, we're just trying to help them keep their heads up because, we have these international issues that just, cause an implosion of cost of energy. So we are going with dual fuel, and we're working on that right now to flip between natural gas and oil. But
dual fuel has helped us tremendously. It's helped us on the city side as well. And that's we do have opportunities on the city side as well as on the school. If a line is running in front of you and we have not hooked up, we're looking at hooking up and converting. And I've had conversations today to figure out what's it going to cost. We're going to work with Yankee Gas. Look, now's the time for us to commit to Yankee Gas for the next couple of years. They're willing to probably incur that cost, some of that cost, share it with us, as long as we commit for a period of time with them. We're under contract with the state for another year. Matter of fact, the price is going down next year for us, which is great. Meanwhile, heating fuel is going up 42%. As of the recent estimate, that is going down for us. So we switch over when the price, this year we're on the regular heating fuel because it's cheaper, but next year we'll just go right to the gas. And so that's the way we control costs on both sides. That's why it's so important for these projects, like the energy efficiency project at the school, to get them to more efficient boilers and to get them to boilers that can switch over on a dime. And to make these hookups for these buildings that they can use dual fuel, especially when you got one fuel that's going through the roof and the other that's a pretty stable cost, in fact, going down a little bit.
And I think the Board of Education's also done their part with solar.
Sure.
Yes.
If you want to talk about that.
Well, we also have been working on the technology. I think that's been a big piece. And
Yep.
the council has asked us to get together, and,
Yep.
and we have. We brought in some consultants, and we're looking at a multitude of technology overlap and redundancies and how we can help each other. It may not be just in personnel, because I think when they look at both places, they're pretty well understaffed, but with technology, we can utilize some of our common systems to save some money. And in the area of, we've been working on for 2 years. In terms of alternative energy, and we'll be coming to the council for a bond issuance on those projects. You just approved it last month. The cost avoidance on those things would be substantial. It's on 3 schools, but it's helpful. That's a new technology. I think, just to begin, I think the board has been aware of financial conditions. I think they've been a partner on it. I think the good effort on their part and the good effort on your part is greatly appreciated. We're just, it's hard to open doors sometimes when you get down to the inability maybe to supply the programs that you think is appropriate for kids. And that's what's happened to us the last 3 years. If I can start, then I think The mayor's correct, you know what the numbers are, but for us, for us to reach the allocation recommendation of $1 million, we have to reduce our budget somewhere around $3,400,000. And let me just give you a quick update on that. The credits, we've been very lucky with our negotiations. The teacher union's here, Kim Thompson is here, helped negotiate this. The unions, we have a 1-year contract with no increase for next year.
Can I ask you a question, sir? What's the increase in healthcare?
4%.
So, and what's the total number, what's your total number for insurance? Is it 10 million, 5 million?
I thought it was 900. I thought it was 900,000.
Pardon?
thought it
You
was-
mean in this year's budget?
Yeah, what do you program for insurance?
This year, the program for insurance is gonna be $950,000. We had started somewhere of 2.1 million when I originally looked at it. So it is, from the original budget that we started, we submitted one with 6%. The
Right.
current one is that we feel real comfortable at a 4% renewal rate.
That's the
Which is
increase?
That's the increase.
What's the total number you pay for
Sure,
insurance?
look in the book there,
21 million.
21 million.
Now, is it possible to go back and look for some concessions on insurance?
They were-
But you didn't get any concessions, because you didn't get any concessions in the arbitration, you only got wage, you got a wage freeze, but
We
no
got,
insurance.
right, all that froze, we just got a wage freeze and, well, anything's possible, but at this point that we haven't gone.
Can't hurt to ask.
About that. That's possible, but I mean, that's one thing that might be there. We think getting down to the 4% has been helpful. Everybody's received the same increase next year, which is 0, basically. And that has helped us along with the healthcare. We actually receiving a revenue from the magnet school. That's really come out to be a good business plan for the city of Danbury. Our first year was challenging, if you remember, we couldn't fill the seats. The state did come up and give Danbury $850,000 that year, but since then, with the way it's all going, we've been able to pay for that and supply the right kinds of programs there. So we have a credit in the budget of about $250,000 that we hadn't anticipated. The ARA funds, we received $3.2 million 2 years ago. When we received those funds, some communities didn't take it. We felt we should take it because it just staved off the kinds of cuts that we knew we were going to have if we didn't have that. When we took that money at that time, there was a feeling that it would be a 3-year program. Well, what happened was it ended 2 years, but the new jobs fund took us out 2 more years. So we did with this year's jobs fund, which was $1.1 million. We've been adding about 1% of our faculty for growth. Danbury is growing. We're one of the few towns in the whole Fairfield County that's growing. Our enrollment's going up. You're going to hear about some growth issues with more space utilization. But we added 8 teachers to the budget after we got our allocation last year, but we got it from the jobs fund. So we took half of that money, or pretty much half, and banked it, so we could pay for those new teachers this year without coming out of our operational fund. So that's been a tremendous help. That comes to an end next year as well. So that's a credit for us in this year's budget that's helping us get down to the bottom line that the city has asked us to get down to. We are looking at to reduce some local matching of Head Start. We think it's so vital, especially now. One of our recommendations, if it comes to fruition, is going to universal half-day. I just met with all the providers actually at a meeting at 6 o'clock. It's very important for us to have preschool. It really closes the achievement gap that we all know that we're under the gun with the state with that. And early childhood education is so important, but still at that, we've reduced the budget about $50,000. 2 years ago, we also reduced it at $50,000. Our staff development account, we're going to reduce it down to, other than those folks that are on grants, just won't go. And that has saved us about $100,000. We're going to keep $34,000 in that fund. The other biggest thing are textbooks. We've had a lot of issues this year with textbooks, but we're going to try to get class sets, put them in classrooms. We've been working with the secondary teachers. It's basically a high school issue. We rewrote 17 curriculums last year, unlike when we went to high school. The textbook is not the curriculum. It should be a resource to it. So in some courses in science and stuff, it's great for the kids to take it home. And they can utilize it, but we can't afford to do it. When you have a course that has 400 or 500 kids, at the high school is so large, and those books are now like college books. You got $150. They're not $45, $50 anymore. So we're putting class sets in, but we've had to reduce that because the priority for the board has been keep teachers in classes and keep our class sizes reasonable. We've also stemmed off our graduation requirements. The state approved a new graduation requirement from last year that would go into operation 2 years from this year. Our board went through it and they looked at it and it felt that we should probably implement it sooner. So we did increase our graduation requirements. We were to begin next year. I recommend to the board that we just hold off on that because a lot of it could add to a fourth year of 2 languages, a fourth year to some sciences, and we just don't know how that might be. So it's hard enough to offer the programs that we have now for graduation. And the state's recommendation is to put off 2 years as well, because there's no funds for the state to run those programs. So that reduction, the things I just talked about, from the credits, that is coming off the almost $4 million with the credits that I just talked about, brings us down to $1.8 million more that we have to cut. So when you add in the health care that we saved, the AIS revenue, the jobs fund, the Head Start, the staff development and textbooks, we're down to $1.6 million. Administratively, when we've cut administrators, I know I keep hearing that, what we tried to do is focus on, we call it the center target. The last 2 years, we've reduced. We're down to the point where we're just providing really a basic education in terms of our outlook. So at the elementary, we've left our reading and writing programs. 3 years ago, we had, and I know you know this because you were as concerned as I was, when we had 4,900 students, we had specialists working in the reading program and math program. When the state cut out the funds, we had 4,900 students, we had 38 specialists working with teachers. Now we have almost 5,200 students and 19 specialists. I just can't remove any more. The programs that work at the elementary school, the teachers need assistance. Last year, we removed all the aides out of kindergarten. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but you go in there with those youngsters with 22 kids in the class with the needs they have, it gets really kind of taxing on everyone in order to accommodate and cover the curriculum in 2.5 hours. So we've reduced that as well. Administratively, we had 52 administrators in 2007. We had 9,800 students. In 2011, we have approximately 10,400 students. We have 34 administrators. We're doing what industry is doing. Everybody's using more hats. People are doing more things. We had that early retirement 2 years ago that we put in, so we're able to reduce folks and we eliminated some redundancies, and then we just expanded responsibilities. So we've done that already. This is a chart. I find it interesting. I have a website, and people have been recommending to us. If you look at this chart, this little sliver here is the discretionary funds. They really aren't discretionary funds anymore. There's not that much money that we can really determine are discretionary. So we're really focusing on this big part, which are programs. And we knew we were going to come down to it this year. We were all hoping that the economy turned a little bit, but as you heard the mayor, it just hasn't gotten to the point where we're able to do anything about it. So what we had to do administratively, we have a Reach Endeavor program. We put some alternative schools for our needier students.
Sorry about that.
Okay?
Yeah.
The Endeavor program, the alternative programs, I know you're familiar with ACE. I'm not talking about ACE. That's still intact. That's left alone. These are highly involved students at the middle school, and you know the laws have changed regarding suspensions and expulsions. So we have these programs that are accommodating, working with these youngsters, and they're doing better. The goal is that they don't drop out and they get back into the regular programming. What we've done last year, we consolidated them. We put them under one administrator. My recommendation this year is that we remove that administrator. We go back to and we have to work with the unions, a head teacher model. If we can do that, we save approximately $100,000 there. We have a curriculum, when we reorganized a few years ago, we had a district department coordinator in every subject area. We consolidated to 3 areas. One of the areas that we consolidated, the fine applied arts, art and music, physical education, and business ed, 9 through 12. I'm recommending to the board that we eliminate that position and we go to some stipend positions to supervise those areas so that we can run them. We can do that. That's an $80,000 savings. I don't think any of these I would ever recommend if we hit the resources, just so please understand that. But to get through, to keep teachers in classroom as much as we can, we need to do something in every area. We have an interim director of special services. We have to have a pupil service director by law. We have the ability, of course, we're a priority school district. We have someone that retired, we can invite that person back, put that person on a part-time basis, and if the board wants to do that, we can save about $43,000. We would go to a .7 there. We have a guidance coordinator. At the high school, we used to have a director of guidance. That was eliminated about 3 years ago. We now have a coordinator of guidance. We've gone this year after the person left to basically department chairman, no release time. I suggest that we stay with that model and we don't put back guidance coordinator, and that'll save us $53,000. Director of athletics, we're going to reduce that from 225 days to 211 days, and that's about $8,000. Now, one area that we didn't talk about, but at the end of the meeting last night we talked about, was to look at our co-curricular activities. I personally think they're extremely important for our youngsters for a lot of reasons. The athletics and the drama, all of the programs, they're really an integral life of young. I see it as core, but the board has asked me to look at it in terms. We know pay-to-pay doesn't really work in city schools because the collection's an issue. The indigent youngsters don't get to play, but there may be some savings there. So we're going to look at possibly some curtailing, some busing, some competitions, and I talked with the athletic director and principal today, so we'll have some savings there as well that'll help us. The real programs that are cut then for teachers, and we're resulting in about 16.5 teachers being reduced. Last year, the good news, I know somebody says, well, you know, you reduce these people their job. That's a good thing. Last year, we had 32 positions, I think, reduced, and between retirements and shifting around, I think 1 or 2 people lost their jobs actually last year, and I think those individuals found a new job, so they weren't unemployed, which helped us, by the way, because you may recall from one, we had to budget 1 teacher of salary for every 8 folks to cover unemployment, so we didn't have to do that. That helped us with getting to the bottom line this year, so that was a great help.
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
You just said you reduced teachers and then, but you didn't reduce positions?
Well, when we didn't fill the positions. What happens through attrition,
So no, they didn't lose their job, you moved them around. How does that save money?
because we really never, we didn't fill the positions. Here are the positions that we didn't fill, okay? Now, if nothing happened to them, those people would lose their job. Because of either retirements or other things that may happen, leaves, we were able to place these folks into these positions. If that didn't happen, they would have all lost their job. We didn't pay for those jobs. Those were savings in the budget. That's how we reduced the budget. Much like what you do here in the city. Okay?
Well, not really.
No, you don't fill the positions. They're empty,
You
right?
carry vacancies. We actually,
But do we fund those vacancies?
no.
I don't fund my vacancies.
You still leave, you leave them in the TO, just,
And they're not there. They're not there. But the people that were cut out would come back in through either
The
bumping.
people that you
them-
cut out of those positions are moved somewhere else.
yes.
That are still
But
not
that's 'cause
getting a
somebody
salary.
That's because somebody retired.
Because
Let's say you get a
somebody leaves.
retirement, so now instead of laying that person off, they can move into the
The
retirement.
positions are still out of the budget. The savings of $1 million is savings of $1 million.
But they don't
If they
backpay.
stayed in there, you'd have to add $1 million back to the budget. We do that, savings.
And if I may, as an example of the effect of that, our class sizes at some of our lower grades have already increased. So I have children in the 2nd and 3rd grade where they may have been at 20 previously, they're now carrying 22, 23, 24, up to 25. So that's some of the effects of not filling some of the people who've retired. Someone at King Street may retire, instead of having 3 sections, you have 2 because we didn't fill it. And there is some moving around, but the net effect is you see class sizes on average going up at some of the grade levels through the district.
Do you know how many retirees we have this year, or coming up?
I think we're close to 6.
We're the 6 and 7. We have, our program asks for people to report intentions to retire by tomorrow in order to trigger certain things. So the numbers are still coming in, but we figure it'll be 6, 7.
Yeah.
When do negotiations start?
For the teachers?
Yeah.
We go back in June, so we'll go through the summer again. This will be for 2012-13 and beyond. So our
Okay,
contract
This
is,
contract covers,
we
next
came
year.
out of arbitration for 11-12, so we're done for 2011 and 12, we're set. And we are going into negotiations this summer for the next academic year and beyond.
12,
13.
13.
And you're gonna do yearly
Lots of
negotiation.
Well, that's
That's what we have right now.
That's
We'll
it's
go
a
back to the table, that's right.
that was an arbitrated question. We went to arbitration over the issue of a one-year contract or a multi-year contract, and came up with a one-year this year.
I think that's a good idea.
1 year? That's both ways.
Yeah, I could go either way, sure.
Well, for us at this point, it was a godsend to receive a zero. I mean, it's really helped us tremendously. And we'll see what happens this coming year. Class sizes, now that you mention it, just so you have this information, the original class sizes 2 years ago were 20 for kindergarten and up to grade 2, 25 for grades 3 through grade 5. Class size guidelines now are 22 for kindergarten. Like I said, no aid. First grade's 25 up to second grade, fifth grade may have to increase over that. And there's some that are 26 to 27, and that starts presenting a problem. There are some guidelines that we try to follow. The high school, on the other side, in terms of the savings I'll talk about, those courses that have been able to run in the past, that are the third or fourth in a sequence, we're gonna have to keep for youngsters because they began those courses. But there's a plethora of electives that have no pre courses to it. Those courses, if they don't get to a critical number of 16, 18, will have to be dropped this year. We just can't offer it, so I've asked them, maybe you can offer them in alternate years.
Which is pretty common.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't get enough kids sign up and they.
And you have to drop it. And that's what we'll have to do. So that'll happen a little bit more this year. Half-day kindergarten. The way we run our half-day kindergarten, it's a lottery system. We had this year about full-day kindergarten. Yeah, thank you. We have half-day kindergarten throughout the district, except each school and 11 sites have at least one full-day kindergarten program. It's done by a lottery. This year we had 864 kindergarten, and roughly 220 of the kids were able to go to full-day kindergarten this year based on the lottery. We're recommending that we go to universal half-day. If we do that, it's a $385,000 savings. As you recall, that was one of the things that all of us had hoped that we'd have a full day, down the road. Right now, it's not really possible. Middle school foreign language, we maintain our Spanish language there, or a language for the middle school. If we reduce our French program so we go to one language only, it helps for a number of reasons, scheduling, a lot of other things. And the 7th grade youngsters that are there, this year we would offer to them in 8th grade, we wouldn't take it away from them, but we would eliminate, we'd be able to mix some Spanish and French certified teachers, but we think we could save 2 positions, one at Broadview, one over at Rogers Park, and save about $140,000. The number that you see there, $140,000, just let me give you that's basically what we pay for a new teacher with at $70,000 with benefits. What's going to happen this time, it's not going to be that amount. When you riff, when you let people go, you wind up letting the less senior person go, so the savings is not going to be as great. It'll cost you a little bit more money, but for planning's sake, we use $70,000 as eliminations and additions. The electives at the high school, they're going to have to eliminate 3 positions somehow at the high school. It could be in special ed, credit recovery program. Credit recovery program is an interesting program. It's new the last 2 years. These are youngsters that had a decent score but failed to get credit in a course. Rather than taking the whole course again, they sign up for credit recovery, and they start at a certain point in the course. They can finish it and receive a pass or fail. They don't have to take the course again. They're on a graduation track. Plus, it saves us in FTEs. It's like going to summer school and taking them. We're going to have to reduce that a little bit because we just don't have enough staffing level to handle it. Right now, we're offering 6 sections or 7 sections and after school, and it's filled up. It's been a popular program, very helpful for our youngsters. So we'll probably have to reduce that to half the time. We have not touched we also are looking at guidance counselors. One at the high school to eliminate and one at the middle school. So right now, there are 3 middle school counselors at each of at Broadview and Rogers Park. They'd have 2.5 and 2.5. I don't think it's a good idea, but it's what we have to do. We have not touched the counseling program the last 3 years that we cut. If we were able to do that, high school eliminate 1 and the counselors eliminate 1, the numbers will go up to 1 to 400 and 1 to 300 at the high school. It'll be about $150,000 saving. That reduction of 16.5 FTEs will bring us down to about $1.7 million of credit, so leaving the balance of about $360,000 to find in order to get down to a zero balanced budget. The way we would do that, we would now go over to our support staff and reduce about 8 there. We have a number of tutors. Tutors play a different role with the integration of special education. Youngsters are encouraged to stay at their home schools and be pushed into classrooms and not be left and segregated out or even removed from the campus. But it's increased the number of tutors that we have. But we think we can possibly save on 3 tutors. Paraprofessionals, we would reduce by 3, and we would again try to look at our secretarial staff to see if we can reduce 2 of them. If we were able to do that, the total on support staff would be 8. It would reduce to $360,000 and would balance our budget. Positions not filling this year. You all know Dr. Deluski left, we won't be filling that. The curriculum administrator for fine and applied arts, I already talked to you about that. That's one administrative position. We would not fill the director of information. We're hoping to team with the city to help us out on that. We need someone who really has the broad perspective about information services, but we just don't feel comfortable being filling that at this time. The athletic director, we're going to reduce from 225 to 206. We will not fill the guidance position. We won't fill. We have a technology system analyst. We're just not going to replace next year. We're going to hold off for a year. If we have to go out and get a specialist to come in for a short period of time, we'll do that. We will not fill the elementary psychologist position that we have, and we're going to eliminate, as I said, the paraprofessionals and the 2 secretaries. Just for your own information, the following groups will be getting 0: secretaries, paras, superintendent, cabinet, teachers, administrators. I'm not sure about the custodians and nurses. Help me out.
Right, the nurses, we're going back into negotiations now with them, so their contract is due to expire, so we're at the table. And custodians had a holdover of a slight increase that was negotiated quite a while ago, and then that contract will also come up for negotiation, so.
When is the paraprofessional up for negotiation?
I believe it's another year from now.
Because depending on how our negotiate, you're aware of this issue. Okay.
I am.
Right.
Yeah, so just to kind of bubble it all up, you've heard a lot of detail, kind of rapid fire, but just to bring this to a high level, the budget books that you have that the board passed back in February really were based upon taking the same exact programs we have today and moving them forward. And the board's thinking behind that, we realize that the position that the school district is in, we're between a rock and a hard place. So we've already described the rock, which is the financial constraints that we're living under, the ability of the taxpayers to fund the school district. On the other hand, the hard place, and the mayor referred to this earlier, is the increasing set of requirements that are being placed on the district by the state and the federal government and other agencies, accreditation agencies for the high school, et cetera. We're under the gun to rapidly improve student performance and achievement in the schools. Is money the only factor in doing that? Absolutely not. But is it a factor to provide the basic materials that we need for the students to work and to thrive in that type of environment? Absolutely. And so that's, we all hear the stories about schools that are placed on need to improve lists, which we have several of them in the district, and that list increases every year, and only because the bar is being raised so high. By the year 2013, 2014, it's anticipated that 100% of our students get to proficiency. We can debate the legitimacy of that rule all day long, but that's still the law of the land. So what you'll see across the state and the country are districts with increasing numbers of schools on these lists. And the penalty for being on these lists require additional or successive steps of corrective action, which require a lot more intervention from administrators, from staff, and teachers and everyone else to raise students' achievement levels to the standards that are being prescribed. And the constraints of the current budget situation, don't help that. Obviously, we're putting in as much as we can, but the other side of the coin of the finances is that the academic requirements aren't going away. And so we need to, this isn't just a problem for Danbury or Connecticut, but across the nation. Many municipalities are facing the same problem, and unfortunately, there's really no one at a state or national level that's really has a unique solution or a solution to the problem. So we have many districts raising their hands, woe is me. And
How many years has it been since we've been having the issue of,
This goes back at least 3-4.
Issue for what?
Needs
Need of
improvement
improvement.
list. That goes back.
It started the 2003. I mean, that's when the testing started. And what Connecticut did, I think they did it the right way. Instead of waiting, you've been hearing about debates between some states are succeeding, others. Connecticut took the approach that they would incrementally increase to proficiency. Some states, instead of doing this, did this, and then figured, we'll wait out the government, and we won't let it hit us. So what has happened is everybody said more and more schools are put on that list. Most of the large high schools are on that list now because they look at subgroups and growth in subgroups. Even though the general population may be doing well, and you have excellent rates for good dropout rates or low dropout rates, good attendance rates, but subgroups can put you in those categories. So it's roughly, we have 2 years left until we get to the magic number. So there's a lot more schools in that area. I don't want you to think that we haven't done some things. We do want to receive the Project Open Door grant. That's for our AP. The high school's been challenged the last few years, and because it's been in the improvement area. We just got recognized 3 weeks ago for the good work of our teachers and our students for their scores on the AP exam. Not only have we grown in numbers, but the kids are doing very well. I was at a conference today, and Danbury is going to get some good news pretty soon in terms of its success in the number of kids that are challenging themselves in AP. And what it does for us, it's really created the culture of moving the curriculum forward. We have some growing pains, no doubt, and we're challenged with not having the resources to provide the capacity of building professional development, but we're working on those things to move ahead. The challenge I told the board is, even though economically, we can fix the buildings, we find the money, we need to do that, but we also have to move ahead even though we don't have resources. So we've been trying to get grants. Dick's here, he's been working with Adopt a School, and we have between in-kind and help about $125,000. We just got a notice today that we may be a finalist for a good grant for the high school in the Nellie Mae. We applied for it and we lost it, but they want us to reapply again. So we're trying some of those things. One thing I neglected to mention, I need to mention, I've been doing adult ed since Bob left, and the state has come in and they need a full-time director. It's not a position that comes out of operation. It's a funded position through the state, but we have to put in a full-time director again. And we're going to try to expand that person's work to do some grant writing and other development things so that we can maybe bring some more grants into the district that would help us.
And just so you know, when you look at the book, where this affects the how the city's taxpayers fund the schools. For this year, we were able to offboard some of the superintendent's salary to grant funding because he was covering for the adult ed director position. So the state is telling us we can't do that. So one of the things you'll see is an increase in the superintendent's salary line, but that's just a shift from
Wouldn't that be my
grant
raise
funding.
though? 40%? I just want to make sure I say that.
But that's just.
But it'll be, it's not funny.
I know.
It represents a shift to the taxpayers.
But it's not a salary increase, it's just that the state won't allow me to do it. They want a full-time director.
But just to wrap up what I was saying, so when you look at it, the board's position in February was we need the programs that we have in order to raise the students' achievement and to get them where they need to be. Obviously, we can't afford to do that. And the major cost drivers we went through are, the health insurance at the time, I think was 9% at the time we approved the budget. It's now down to 4%, so that's blunting some of the cuts we need to make. But the other two are increasing enrollments, and the biggest factor on expenses is the lack of federal funding, or the 2-year plug that the federal government put in there to prevent layoffs 2 years ago, has finally run out, and that's not being renewed. And so now the question is, does that get shifted to the local taxpayers, or do we just have to eat it? Which is, again, taxpayers can't afford it, that's what has to happen.
Well, you knew when it came in that it was only for so long.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, we could have, some districts took the money and did one-time expenditures. They just went and bought something. We elected to use it for our teachers and keep them in classrooms. But we knew that would happen, yeah.
And the last thing I would mention, the list of suggestions that you've heard and recommendations, we went over last night. We went over it at the board's finance committee meeting about a week ago, the day after the budget presentation. So we've been preparing for the eventuality of where we need to come in at. But just keep in mind that these are recommendations. The board had a very spirited discussion about many of the items on the list last night, and will continue to do so until the numbers are final. We won't be finalizing our line item budget until after the council votes. But there's been a lot of discussion about what items should or should not be on the list. But keep in mind, I think whatever gets, if anything were to be taken off of this list, I think something else probably equally as damaging will be placed back on it. Because I think, and I'll credit the administration for doing a fine job, Elio especially, on the health insurance and negotiating that down about 75% from where it was in terms of an increase. But and we're going to keep trying, but in the event we hit the wall there are no other dollars to take out. And so if we remove one of these recommendations from the list, I think something else probably equally as damaging will be placed back on it. So that's a tough conversation to have, but it's not as if we don't have very many pencils left to take out. So it's
And I know the council has been receiving complaints on transportation. And what's happening is our ridership has increased exponentially, and we have not increased our buses. So what's happening is it's just taking longer for youngsters to get home, and people are getting frustrated. The rides are getting longer, but we just can't see how we're going to be able to add some buses to our fleet just yet. So, but it's not the only problem. But that's created some real issues for us. I think that's it, unless someone else, Dick's here, or anybody
I
else?
think Mr. Riley has a
Oh.
question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could, comment and then a question, if that'd be okay. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the Board of Ed and Dr. Sal. I certainly appreciate your efforts. That being said, I'd just like to stipulate a couple points. One, that as the mayor had mentioned just recently, this is a very difficult year. Last year was the same, but this year tends to be even worse. The Social Security payments in the last 2.5 years are 0% increase. Disabled American veterans for the last 2.5 years, 0% increase. For retired teachers, administrators, 0% increase. It's a very difficult situation. You can't get blood out of a stone. It's impossible. That being said, I take issues with the line item 004. If you look at the assistant principal line item, it's an increase of 12.95%. Now, all due respect to Dr. Sal and the board, you would say that, yes, we've cut administrators, but it's a convoluted issue. The reason is that what has transpired, we have taken teachers who normally, maybe in some cases are not, do not have a 6-year certificate, or they might have, and we give them a stipend as an administrator, and we also turn around and we eliminate them from maybe teaching position by 2 to 3 classes. So my point is, if you go on to the web and you check out the administrative numbers, we have not reduced the number of administrators, we've increased. And if you look at that line item 004, 12.9% increase for administrators is absolutely crazy, absolutely out of whack. And I say this, that it cannot be. And so it's a convoluted issue when we say that we've dropped administrators. If anything, ladies and gentlemen, in all due respect, Dr. Sal and the board, if you're gonna sit down and you're gonna start cutting, take a hard look at your administrators. That's where a lot of our money is going. Secondly, paraprofessional special ed increased 28%. Overall, the educational special ed increase is approximately 13%. Now, I'm a former educator. I had 34 years in it. By any means, I understand the system. And I'm not so old that I forgot what the hell I forgot what I'm talking about. Now, special ed, all due respect to special ed, it's a separate entity within the school system. It's a must, and we need to have it, there's no doubt about it, because our students and our children that are special, all due respect to them and their parents, they need to have it too. But I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a self-motivating situation. The more you identify ADDH, ADD, and all these other issues, the bigger it gets. It's a problem within itself, the special ed budget. It's well over $2.5 million. It's an issue. The last thing I would say is that our poor taxpayers, they can't handle it. Somebody like me, a retired teacher, yeah, sure, I can handle it, but I might be an exception to the rule compared to some poor people that are on a low fixed Social Security payment per month, and they're at the realm of, if they get a raise in taxes this year, they don't know what the heck they're gonna do. We just can't afford it. And then the question for Dr. Sal, all due respect again, we a little while back, we talked about the issue of solar panels. And we talked about the issue of, I think it was coming down to $1.4 million to put solar panels at Park Avenue School. Is this part of the budget this year? If that $1.4 million is part of the budget to put solar panels at Park Avenue, it's a 12-year process before you receive any savings down the line. It is not something that has to be done this year, and next year, or the following year. We could, if that is true about the $1.4 million that the taxpayers are gonna get hit, that means you could cut $1.4 million right off the budget. If that is true. Do we need solar panels at Park Avenue right now? No, we don't. And then secondly, if I'm not mistaken, at the time that we talked about solar panels there, the gentleman in question that presented wasn't willing to guarantee it. I know one thing. I've been around a long time, ladies and gentlemen. You don't poke holes in buildings, especially the roof, because the roof, when you drill one little hole, it's magnus opus after a short time, meaning it gets bigger and bigger. Okay, so you think about that, and maybe Dr. Sal will answer that question.
Magnus opus?
Big thing.
Regarding the solar panels, I'd have to double check, but I believe that was part of our system, and it really didn't increase our operating budget to do it. But Elliot's not here, I'll have to double check. David's here.
It's over a number of years.
Yeah.
Spread out.
So it was a.
But it's still in the budget this year.
One-time purchase.
No,
It's over a number of
Oh,
years.
it's not.
No.
Yeah.
And there's no holes are being
And
drilled.
there's no, you're not gonna,
We'll check that
those
one.
projects are intended to have a minimal and operational impact
Thank you.
in the year. So it's spread over 12 years.
And they're free flow.
And there's no holes in the roof, just it's a free-floating thing, it gets set on the edges. Just
Only that
We-
we
we've-
don't have a year like we had this year, and maybe the roof will stay. A roof.
Mayor?
The only thing I just wanted to mention, Madam Chairman, I don't know if we'll solve anything tonight. I think that I speak for all of the council to say, if, you know, we'd love to give you as much money as we can't even afford tapes anymore.
Bigger tapes.
Just kidding. We would love to give you, we'd love to fulfill whatever requests that you had, because everybody, every single member of that city council is supportive of our teachers, our staff, and most importantly, our children and the families who support them. We get that, we understand that. And I think for whatever coaching that I can get from David and I's perspective is, and the council, is that we need to fund things that will change the long-term dynamic of what we're facing. So whether that means, you know, biting the bullet now and spending $11 million on windows and boilers, because we know that oil and natural gas are only going up and we've got to be more efficient with the energy we deliver, or whether that means that we combine on IT, or whether that means that we look at the 99% of that pie chart, which I know is not popular, and I know it's not the greatest thing in the world to say, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but you know, our health benefits and our pension benefits are draining any ability we have to be able to sustain increases for the kids. And at the end of the day, it's supposed to be for the kids. And that doesn't mean that I'm a teacher. I hope in November not to have to go back to the high school, but I might have to. I'll be working it out. And I heard that, Cindy. I'm still in your unit. And I'm not suggesting that we stick teachers or paraprofessionals with, I'm not suggesting we stick teachers or paraprofessionals with healthcare benefits that they can't get care. I'm not suggesting that. But I am saying that this is a new dynamic, it's a new normal. And the more structural changes that we can make, and we're going through some very painful negotiations now around those issues, because it's just not sustainable. The general employees pension I mentioned, the employees put in no money towards that pension, not a dime. That's just not sustainable now in this economy. So these are things that we look at, and while they were great in the 60s and 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, they're not great now because of an economic tsunami. And I don't mean that to be insensitive. So I think we just have to recognize that structural changes are what we need to do. We need to invest money in structural changes when it makes sense, because we're trying to look at the long-term expenditure here. And then we've got to get through this hump in the short term. To that end, what I can commit to, and the council can commit to Sal, and David and I will work with Sal and Ilio. This is a work in progress, it's not over. We've heard your priorities, and I think all of you in the room admit that I pretty much know every nook and cranny of the city, and I know what we need to do. Yeah, I can't promise anything tonight, we're not gonna change anything tonight, I don't know if you are, it's up to the council, but I can tell you, we're gonna continue that dialogue, and if there's ways that we can combine resources, Parks and Rec, other kinds of line items, that fund, so we'll work with you on that, and the board, I can guarantee you.
Mr. Arcani?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Sale, we all know you're not gonna get 118 million bucks this year. No. So let's just say you were to receive the mayor's proposal, which would be 114,895 then? Is it right around there?
And $1 million more.
Yeah, well, I looked here, it was 113,895, so we'll go 114,895. Help me out here, Dr. Sale, with all that you said. What are we losing if you get 114 million bucks?
What we're losing?
Yeah, what are you losing?
All day.
Right?
All day.
All day.
All day kindergarten.
No doubt, right?
Pardon?
There's no
It's on
doubt.
the table now, it's not permanent until.
No, right now, it's just a recommendation to the board. They have to then finalize. So all students would have the minimum, which is half-day kindergarten. So the one full-day kindergarten at each school would be eliminated. Foreign language at the middle school would only be one language, be Spanish and not French. We would lose, and I missed this, I apologize, 2 tech ed teachers at the middle school as well, 1 in each school. We would, the high school would lose about 3 positions. It depends on, you know, again, where the numbers are low. Could be in special ed, could be in some of the electives or credit recovery. You're gonna lose a psychologist, and you're gonna lose 2 counselors. We're gonna lose Reach Endeavor administrator.
What is it?
That's an administrator. That's the alternative program.
When you get
Can I
exposed.
ask you a question about that? That Reach Endeavor program? At one point, there were 2 separate programs.
That's right. One was
And then we,
last year,
you asked one administrator to take over
both.
both. And how is that administrator doing with that project? Has it done well? And, I mean, you're talking about using a head teacher model. Can you explain to me what a head teacher model can do? These kids, if we're talking about our kids at risk, and I wanted to know what security, you know, what kind of security measures, you know?
No,
When you're
fair
talking about a
question.
head model teacher, and is that teacher, head teacher model, would that person also be taking on more responsibility somewhere else?
The answer is yes, yes, and no, I guess is the best way to put that. What we would have to do, it would be better if the person was there. But again, I'll go back to saying, I wouldn't be recommending this if we were able to fund it at a different level. But in terms of the way we're looking at it, one time, the program had 1 head teacher, some years back. It was, I forget Ken's last name.
Each program had one head teacher?
We didn't have the Endeavor, I'll
Okay.
explain. But we did have 1 person, head teacher, that taught and had a stipend. And that person's in charge of stuff there. Remember, it's a small group, but although volatile, you're correct about that. 3 years ago, we started an Endeavor program. We put a full-time counselor in there who kind of ran the program.
And
we had the
Endeavor,
teachers.
what kind of kids?
Middle school.
Middle school age?
7th and
Okay.
8th grade students. The Reach were high school students and expel students. Last year, we combined both and we put them on one campus. We did some remodeling, they're separate, but they're on campus. We have 1 administrator there overseeing both. This proposal would remove that person from there, go back to the head teacher models that we had. I would also then take one of my pupil service individuals, much like I did at Mill Ridge, the school that we closed. I'd put someone there as administrator to kind of oversee. I'd have to have someone in that building where they would operate out of. One of the individuals we have that's in charge of counselors and psychologists, social workers, all of those services those youngsters need could be housed there rather than at central office. So I would do that. We could still have a security problem, no doubt. It's better to have a full-time person there, as we have it now, but that's not what I'm recommending.
So you would be putting a full-time person there?
But right now, the person who's there now, the difference is the person who's there now, that's their home, they stay there. You know, they're there the whole day. The person I would put there, you'd have the head teachers dealing with, you know, operational issues, but they'd be an administrator in charge of that campus ostensibly. But it's not gonna be there 24/7. They could be out at some other schools. That's the difference. That's the difference.
And you feel that's,
I feel I have to do that.
you don't think there's
I
a
can't-
security issue there?
Well, I think there's, yeah, I think there's a security issue now. If I had my way, I probably would have a security person down there. We're gonna have to change the program, now you say that. We may have to go back. Right now, the youngsters, I'm gonna have to talk to the board, they're there full day, and that's not working as well. We may have to go back to some partial day work with them to bifurcate